In the Dark Ages, few things would arise suspicion and mistrust among the Cainites as those of their kind who would choose to do good. The Salubri, despite their cursed nature, proclaimed themselves healers and miracle workers, aiding the poor and the downtrodden, and rarely asking for anything in return. In a time where the vampire descendants of Cain ruled the night with an iron fist, surely this behavior was unnatural, if not outright rebellious to the very core of their existence. The healers, Saulot's first progeny, would seek their childer not for their own satisfaction. Other clans would perhaps desire within their young a certain talent, a mind for martial matters, or a strong sword arm. But for these Salubri, what mattered instead was a desire to do good, to teach, to nurture, and to make the world better. To these healers, age had little relevance, nor did skill. Wisdom and ability could be trained in anyone, but the temperament of a scholar, a healer, and a philosopher was innate and needed only to be nurtured and fed with the firewood of knowledge. Thus, the range of healers amongst the Salubri would span from old wizened men to young innocent girls barely on the cusp of womanhood. To the healers, what mattered was the potential to do good, and in only a rare few cases was this not the determining factor of their embrace. And while the warrior caste would choose their childer from those whom have known war, the healers would need to study their candidates, often over long periods of time, to ensure they were of the proper material for the burden they would be given to bear. They would not force themselves upon their future child, but rather offer them the embrace, coding it in words that would make it seem more like a holy vow. And would it not be? For a Salubri healer would forever be different, put on another path, not only from their fellow mortals, but of their Cainite peers. Before the usurpers began to hunt them, the child would spend many years with their sire, studying all manners of knowledges from the practical medicine to the theoretical esoterics, in order to prepare them for their roles. Usually, at least 5 years would be the minimum amount of time they would spend together to ensure that the knowledge needed would be firmly rooted in the fledgling's mind, but it was not unheard of for more years being needed. But we come then to the topic of the usurpers. Inevitably, for their ascent mirrors the fall of the once proud lineage of Saulot. The Tremere, who had taken their immortality by force and trickery, found themselves beset by many Cainites who took their appearance as an insult to their blood. It was Etrius, one of Tremere's most loyal followers and a prominent member of the inner council of the clan, who discovered the location of Saulot's tomb. Tremere and his followers vastly misunderstood the other clan's dislike of them, assuming it was their lack of pedigree and an Antediluvian, a founder, that set them apart from the others. Thus they set out to find themselves one, having concluded that the amaranth, the act of diablerie upon a Cainite, would grant the attacker some modicum of the victim's power. It is uncertain how many of the Antediluvians the Tremere were able to track down, but they settled for Saulot, as he seemed least protected. They assaulted his crypt, easily dispatched his guardians, and drained the ancient founder of the Salubri dry, Tremere himself consuming his soul. According to the accounts of some who were there, Saulot himself had offered no resistance, retaining a peaceful look upon his face, even as his body turned to ashes. Yet this plan of the Tremere backfired, because they had once again misunderstood the Cainites whose approval they had sought. The other clans were outraged that the usurpers had dared to shake the very foundation of their society by destroying one of the founders of the 13 clans. The Omen Wars, which the Tremere were embroiled in, escalated as more clans sought to destroy them. All the while, the agents of the Warlocks were actively hunting down any and all Salubri they could find to diablerize, hoping to wipe the clan from existence. Yet, if the Salubri hoped for retribution for their loss, they would be disappointed. It did not take long for some prominent Cainites of other clans to learn of the true nature of the Salubri as diablerists and demon worshippers. The Tremere worked hard to propagate an alternative idea of the unicorns that many war-weary vampires were a little too quick to adopt. It had never been about the Salubri, of course. Few clans trusted or enjoyed their company. Instead, it had been about face and honor, both which had been sated by the Tremere joining forces with the Ventru, and the justification they presented for the extermination of the three-eyed Cainites. The healers and the warriors would meet near the end of the 13th century to discuss how to respond to these accusations and to the crimes done to them. The healers refused to meet violence with violence, and thus the warriors split with them, opting instead for vengeance. It would mean their destruction, and as Echius diablerized Mokur in the early 16th century, the last elder of the clan had fallen. The Salubri who remained chose to hide their numbers, often claiming that only 7 of them remained at any given time. Some would go very far in enforcing this, only embracing a child when they had reached their end of the journey towards Golconda, and then allowing their progeny to diablerize them, maintaining their small numbers and carrying on the clan's blood without diluting it too far. There is said to have been a third caste of the clan, the Watchers, formed by Saulot during his journey into the east. These were said to have joined him in hunting the wisdoms and secrets of gods and demons alike, and were equal parts scholars and thieves. Yet they rarely journeyed to the west, instead choosing to remain behind in order to pursue the goals their clan's founder had set for them, and protecting the vampires there from other threats. There have only been a rare few interactions between these Wu Zhao and the main body of the clan, and few of the Salubri know of their existence. The Tremere could not find all Salubri, of course, and many escaped their hunters, often aided by enemies of the Tremere such as the Banu Hakim. Yet without their founder and their elders, the clan would slowly be whittled away. The Bali would occasionally resurface, and the unicorns had not forgotten the oath they had sworn to destroy these demon worshippers. Thus, many of them died fighting the Bali, often side by side with the Banu Hakim, who likewise understood the threat that these heretical Cainites presented. The Ashira harbored 7 Salubri for quite some time, protecting them from outside threats in exchange for a limitation of their numbers and for constant vigilance. They were treated as royalty, yet were not permitted to wander or travel, and while grating, this condition did keep them safe from the pursuit of the usurpers. In the modern Knights, some Salubri would eventually come to join the Sabbat. To an outsider, this might seem strange, as the Sabbat in the late 20th century would be far removed from what Saulot had taught his progeny. But to these fallen warriors, the words of their master had died along with him. They joined the Sabbat in order to bring pain and destruction to the Tremere and all who had accepted them. Led by a Salubri named Adonai, these anti-tribu had little care for their caste's traditions and morals, casting aside their old teachings in order to seek vengeance for past slights. Yet as the pyramid would begin to crumble in the early 21st century, the Salubri would grow bold. They would appear more frequently among the other kindred, often disguised, but sometimes showing off their third eye as if to taunt the Warlocks who were scrambling to recover from the attacks enacted upon them. The healers had never truly been destroyed, and in the modern Knights they could continue to pursue their path of healing and teaching of Golconda through new mediums and to a new, more receptive group of kindreds. Of course, the Tremere are far from powerless, and few kindred openly mingle with the Salubri should they know of their existence. The Camarilla have no interest in harboring them, nor do the Salubri in joining, and many Anarch factions who are in the know are reluctant to offer them shelter. Those who do are either too uninformed to know what the Third Eye might mean, or they know and simply choose to flaunt it in the eyes of their enemies. Before we end this discussion on the Salubri, we need to briefly mention the many mysteries surrounding Saulot himself. Initially, he was thought destroyed, killed by Tremere as he was diablerized. Yet it has been shown many times that the soul of a particularly powerful vampire might survive the Amaranth and even fight to claim the body of the one who diablerized them. Such was the case with Saulot and Tremere, and for 800 years the two fought over Tremere's body, the clan's founder almost constantly in a state of torpor. There are some who claim that the Ancient One, founder of the clan Simish, likewise had a stake in Tremere's body, but ultimately it was Saulot that won. In 1998, he took full possession of Tremere's body and left the Vienna Chantry for reasons unknown. Many speculate that Saulot might not have been as wise, loving, and kind as history claims he was. Some believe that he purposefully enticed the Tremere to diablerize him and to destroy his clan, having been unsatisfied with the end results of his long project in exploring the vampiric condition. Indeed, considering the different branches of his bloodlines, one can assume that perhaps Saulot may have tried to start over several times, dissatisfied with the end result of all of his attempts, and that the pursuit of the Salubri was merely an attempt by him to wipe the slate clean. Some even believe that Saulot immediately took hold of Tremere's body and thus ordered the destruction of his own clan, which certainly darkens the image of this saint-like Antediluvian. Whatever his true motivations may be, one should be careful in assuming anything about the founder of this clan based on legends and stories. As we have been shown before, the state of Golconda itself may not be quite as cut and dry as it originally seemed. There are stories of kindred who have strayed from the path, or those who have been on it, yet been capable of performing wicked and evil deeds, despite their sanctimonious nature. And what of the Bali? These infernal canites are said to have been created by Saulot in the past, three mortals thrown into a well of rotting, decaying flesh, and fed droplets of vitae, told that they know nothing about true evil. Are they the creation of Saulot, or something else entirely? My thanks go out to my patrons for their support of my dark pursuits. I would like to thank the Antediluvian Bambi Parsons, a leader with an unbreakable will, and the Methuselah, her satanic majesty Danny, whose presence chills the blood, and Socrates Johnson, a scholar and masterful craftsman of stories. We would also wish to thank the Primogen Council of Alexander Kishtaria, Bled, Lauren Eason, Nikolai Marius Voiculescu, Procyon, and the Only Body. We would finally wish to raise our cups in gratitude to the Elder Casper 99. And thank you for watching. Now be careful out there, for Gehenna may soon be upon us.